Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prodcast channel where we discuss careers in tech and job search experience for immigrants in the US. I'm your host, Anna Naumova, an immigrant myself, and also a former product manager at Apple. I'm thrilled to be here sharing my knowledge and insights with you. In today's episode, we will be diving into visa challenges that immigrants face in the US with a special focus on H1B visa. We will explore the growing demand for these visas, how they impact job searches, and the emotional toll of navigating a certain immigration status. So sit back, relax, and let's embark into this insightful journey together. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you for a small favor. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Each week, I release new videos covering various topics such as product management, working in tech, and the immigration process in the US. Your support means a lot for me. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or scheduling a call with me, please visit annanaumova.com for more information. You can find the link to my website in the video description below. Now, let me introduce my guest today, Ram Nadathur, a sales leader and business development strategist. Ram brings a wealth of experience and insights to the table, and I'm excited to have him to join this conversation. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Hi, Ram, and thank you for joining this call today.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you for joining. Maybe you can share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am originally from India. Have been in the US for quite a while. I came here to pursue a master's in genetics. Currently, I am a business development executive with a genomics company in Long Island, New York, but I live just outside of DC.
Okay. Can you please share how have you moved to the US? When was it? How was your
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
So it was 2009. I just finished my undergrad in India in genetic engineering and wanted to sort of pursue a career in biology. So I chose genetics, and I came to the University of Arizona. Obviously, the application process, all of that took a while, but I came here precisely July 2009 to Tucson, Arizona. That was my first sort of introduction to the US and the Southwest in general.
Did you move to study here, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Could you please share details about your education?
Sure. So my undergrad was basically specializing in genetic engineering. So that's mostly molecular biology, everything to do with biotechnology, sort of very nuanced and niche. So just continuing that, I chose genetics, where you will be, I was learning most of the genetic techniques, breeding, mostly plant and animal genetics, a mix of those. And you take a lot of advanced genetics courses alongside pursuing research, and my research particularly was in evolutionary biology and phytoplankton in general.
And what's your current educational situation? You mentioned that you're working on a PhD. Is that correct?
No, actually, I was working on a PhD. I spent 6 years in New Mexico working on a PhD. To tell you a little bit, so we had to go back a little. So I finished my master's in 2012. That was the first. I took 3 years to finish my master's. After finishing that, I actually went to California to work for Thermo Fisher to do oligonucleotide synthesis, sort of DNA synthesis, to be precise. After that, I wanted to, again, go back to grad school, specifically a PhD. So I took a year off. I was working in India and then got back to the US for a PhD in molecular biology. So obviously, as an immigrant, you have to you can't just pursue education or just pursue applications. You have to side by side keep working. That's one of the challenges of being an immigrant. So I came back in 2015 for a PhD in molecular biology. I was working towards in 2021, but it looked like it was going to take 1 or 2 more years, even though I felt like I was coming to the end of the program. And I thought that, I felt like I want a different challenge, work on different things, because when you do a PhD, your focus is very narrow towards one particular thing. And I was working on loco weeds in the southwest of the US, which is very niche and not in general. So I wanted to move out of that, and I moved to the industry after that.
I see. That's why because I wanted to connect your education in biology and genetics with your sales
Absolutely.
job. Yeah, that's interesting transition. Tell me about that. Yeah.
So it was basically maybe 2021, beginning of that, and sort of it was a back and forth in terms of what I wanted to do. I had not been in sales before, and I felt like I was coming to the end of my program, having a lot of difficulties in terms of doing more and more research, even though I had done a lot. So it just with my wife, prodding me because she always felt that I was good for sales, marketing. I was capable of those kind of jobs. So she prodded me to look for opportunities in those fields. So that allowed me to transition to a sales job. And I didn't find the need to go back and finish the PhD. But as you know, all my sales jobs, at least until now, have been strictly in biotech and genomics. So it's sort of the transition has been there. I still consider myself being in the same field, because even though I'm a business development executive, I still have to talk about science to a lot of people, so which I find rewarding.
Yeah, and I bet you have a very deep knowledge of this industry, and you're definitely better than everyone else without this education, right?
I can't pat myself on the back, but yeah, in essence, I have to know at least a little bit, based on my experience and having been around the block, at least in the field, and having worked for 3 different companies. I sort of have a knowledge, at least in the field of genomics and biotech products in general, to sort of navigate, what all the challenges that people are encountering.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me about your visa right now. What visa do you possess right now?
So I am still on an OPT visa. So this is
what is OPT? Yeah, let's maybe
So an OPT is optional practical training. So once you finish your master's or a PhD, you get 12 months of optional practical training. So within that 12 months, you're supposed to find other visas to transition to. But as time went on, I think after 2007, there's an additional component to the OPT, which added 24 months more to the existing 12 months. So I had 3 years. So I am still on the end of the 3 years. So I've completed about 25 months. I still have 7-8 months of that OPT, or specifically STEM OPT, remaining, as I am in a STEM field, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
Okay, so on OPT, you have 3 years overall because you have STEM. Generally, okay. So, but still, you need to switch your visa status. You need to find something else and to work legally in the US. So, have you done anything to change your visa?
That's very good. This is a long-winded answer, but as the H1B, we as individuals are not supposed to apply for an H1B, right? An H1B is applied by an organization that I work for, or you work for, and the USCIS processes applications from an organization. So my first company I worked for and my current company both applied for an H1B. My previous first company I worked for applied for in 2022. My current company applied for it in 2023, and I was not selected in both sort of, as you know, the H1B system. So I was not selected both times. So, I'm exploring options after that.
Yeah, that's actually sad. Yeah, you applied for H1B, you failed 2 times, and it's actually you have remaining, you mentioned
8 months,
8
yeah,
months,
something like that.
right, to change this. So we will dive deeper into that, but let's talk about these applications and the competition around that. So what's your thoughts on the current situation regarding H1B visa? Because the number of applications is constantly increasing each year. You filed in 22 and 23, and USCIS reported 780,000 that I checked yesterday, H1B registration for FY24 for next year, which means a significant increase of 60% compared to the previous year. So it means that it's really increasing sharply each year. What do you think is causing this high demand?
There are multiple factors at play. I'll delve into each one. So the first thing is the number. So essentially, since I have an advanced degree, the number of applications or H1B processed each year for advanced degree holders is 85,000. If you don't have an advanced degree, it's 65,000. So I come in a 20,000 bracket, and then there's another additional 65,000 that's open to anybody, even without an advanced degree. So 85,000 are selected each year, and this year there was 780,000. So essentially, it's sort of nearly 1 in 10, right? One person is selected among 10 applicants. And the H1B application process itself is sort of very outdated, because there is no merit you can show to anybody, right? It's a lottery process. You can go as far high in your field as possible, which I believe I've grown pretty quickly in my field, but it doesn't really matter. So it's a lottery, as the name suggests. So you're picked out of a hat, and that makes it very difficult. The second thing, which is very difficult, is the fact that people are processing multiple applications. So this is not considered good practice, but people do. People put in 5, 6 applications. And I do not believe there are 780,000 people who needed an H1B last year. They're not. You know it. I know it. USCIS knows it. That's why there's an article in the Wall Street Journal maybe a month or so ago where the USCIS is looking for all these sort of duplicate applications and trying to weed them out. So essentially, it's not the number of people, it's the existing people, but they are using other methods to get their application picked, which I have a problem with. I've never applied more than once. So if there's a year, I or my employer have made only one application.
I see what you mean. Just because people decided to hack the system and apply multiple times, the same people, right? That caused this high increase in the applications. Oh, and so do you believe it's still reasonable for individuals to apply for H1B visa right now?
I mean, so the options are pretty limited to come to the US, right? In terms of visas. So that's why people find it much easier to go to Canada or other countries. But the H1B is still an option for you. But if you believe you're a high achiever, there might be different options for you to explore.
Okay. What kind of options are you referring to?
So the current sort of other option I'm exploring is the O1 visa, which is for excellence in your field or outstanding contribution, and you have to be in the top 5% or something. There's a list of stringent requirements for you to even qualify for that kind of visa. So that is something you can pursue if you believe you're a high achiever, you're being paid maybe top 5% in those roles that you currently occupied. You've published papers, and then you've had some sort of press or achievements. So that is something I am exploring currently, because that, I believe, is a much better option considering my achievements, rather than the H1B, where there's no achievements being considered. You're just another number.
I see what you mean. So have you applied for H1B 2024 next year?
So H1B 2024 is essentially what application I submitted this year, because H1Bs begin only in October. So that is technically considered financial year 24. Okay. But the applications happen in 23. So if they say FY 25, the applications usually happen in 24. 24. So that's how it works.
So you submitted to H1B 2024 already. Yeah. So, but you still like now working on other options you mentioned?
Because I was not selected. Yeah.
Oh, I meant like for the next year, so next lottery, or you haven't applied?
Next year, the lottery you can apply only in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
The application is basically, I think, like 15 days or 20 days in March. That's the only sort of small window you have to apply. And then they give you the results between March 29th and 31st. That's how it works.
I see what I mean. So it means that you don't have any other options to apply for H1B right now.
No, you don't.
It's just over. Yeah, H1B is over for you because of that like time frame we discussed before. So your only option right now is to get O1 visa, right?
Yeah, I have to caveat it by saying that there could be a second lottery, if USCIS finds like, a lot of duplicate applications, they don't receive enough applications to process for the H1B, because once you're selected, you still have to again apply with all the required paperwork. So if they don't get all the requisite applications, 85,000, they will ask for more, which they do through a second lottery. So that's an option, but it's unlikely. I don't think there's going to be a second lottery. Some people think there will be.
Yeah. The chance of the second lottery is like super low, right? You need to think right now about like other options. You mentioned O1 visa. Okay, so what about your spouse? You mentioned that you have a spouse. What's her occupation, and did she also participate in visa lottery?
Yes, she was more unlucky than me because she had it rejected 3 times.
3 times. Gosh.
Yes. So she is currently a product manager for a large company in Southern California. Of course, she's working remote because we're in DC. We got married 2017. So we've been together here for the last 6 years, and she's applied for the H1B the last 3 years. So even though she got the H1B for the first year, but her company closed down before October 1st. Ooh. So once your company closes, that's it. That H1B application is gone. Her company closed down precisely in August, end of August, September, which means she couldn't have transferred the H1B to a new thing either. So that's just how it worked.
Okay, what's her plan? Does she has a plan B, like you, O1 visa, or just it's only your case?
So it's my case, and then she's also planning for an O1 visa. But if I get an O1 visa, she can be independent on it.
Right, she cannot work on that, right?
That is a good point. Yes, she cannot work on it, but ultimately we immigrants have to go through all these kind of hoops to even survive. So those are our options currently. But but the only thing we keep holding on to is the fact that we have a specific know-how and expertise in the field through which we strongly believe that we will be able to solve these visa issues.
Okay, so ideally you both should get O1 visas, right? That's going to be your ideal outcome of this process, and you both will keep working here in the US and contribute, to the
Yes.
economy. I see what you mean. But if not, like one of you will get O1 visa and other person will figure it out how to
Get back.
get work authorization here in the US. Yeah. That's a really rough situation. So how does it feel like knowing that you might have to leave the country soon due to lack of visa? How does your immigrant status impact your life? Tell me about that,
So
please.
it impacts it a lot. It impacts it a lot in the sense we can't do any sort of long-term planning of like generally if you're living anywhere in the world, and I'm in my mid-30s, so everybody plans for like, living somewhere, a house, a car, those kind of things. We can't do any sort of long-term planning. And because the visa is obviously a very fluid situation. And because I've been here so long and, I've learned to live with the uncertainty of the visa, but my wife obviously has not been in the US she's been here 6 years. I've been here 14. So she, finds it much more sort of difficult to have that kind of uncertainty as you believe, we have a family and like we're trying to make sure that we're secure, and not not, I don't know, prone to like variations in lifestyle that much based on the visa itself.
Yeah. So you can't actually really like buy a house, for example. Yeah, you
No, I
cannot
can't.
plan, I don't know, like kids or anything. Just any really long-term planning is
It's
it's
very
rough.
very difficult. And the cost, just to keep applying for a visa, if I have to do an O1, which I'm doing currently outside of an employer, obviously I have to put my own money into it. So
Yes, and
all of this, because financially it affects you, lifestyle wise it affects you, financially it affects you, security wise it affects you. So all angles.
okay. So, and in worst case scenario, what you gonna do? Let's say you both won't get O1 visa. Any plans on that, like moving to Canada or so, or?
Yeah, the moving to Canada is the obvious option most people take. We would not prefer that, but if that is the option we have, we will have to take that.
Mm-hmm. And you do not consider even moving back to India?
No, precisely why most people are here in the US. Everybody's here for economic opportunity. And, like most people, whether they're European, there are a lot of Europeans here in the US. The disparity between Europe and America is much less compared to the disparity between US and India, right?
Mm-hmm.
So South India, I work for a really cutting edge genomics company. And there's no cutting edge genomics company in like where I come from.
Yeah,
And
you cannot like probably find a good job there, with your education, with your specific knowledge, very unique knowledge. So you definitely need to be like somewhere here in the US or either Canada. Okay.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
will Canada be still a good option for you, or is it much worse than the US?
It's in my personal opinion, it's considerably, I would say, second best compared to the US. It's but of course it's not India, so that's all it needs to be for us to explore Canada as an option. It's not India. That's the reason you explore it. But that's about it. If you the preferences, I would say 1 to 99 would be the US, and then 100 would be Canada. So that's just how it works.
Okay. What's your wife feeling about that?
So my wife obviously is a much more, she's much more of a planner, and she likes, something, a fail-safe. So she is exploring the Canada proposition even before we found out that we haven't got another option. So because she likes planning much more than I do.
Like me. Like we all girls, like product managers, probably the same. I'm a product manager. I'm a female, and I also like planning. I cannot live in uncertainties. So
that's right.
terrifying for me not being able to see my future. So I need to see, like, I need to know what to do like tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why I feel like she has, like, developed this sense of resilience, just because she is much more prone to planning and all of that. The fact that she's not able to do it, but she's going through this process, being calm and, like, working through this is very good.
Yeah, I see. Okay, how does your visa status affect your job search? How do companies typically react when they learn that you don't have a visa?
So basically, when you apply for any sort of position, at least I can only speak for my field, and I can probably speak for my wife's field, which is software and applied geography, which is GIS. So that's tech, and this is more biotech. So in both these fields, every job you apply for, in the application process, there are like a few pick lists. They will ask you, are you legally authorized to work in the US? And then the next question, obviously, do you require sponsorship to continue working in the US? So literally every job you apply to has these questions, and there's a yes or no answer component. And, you have to, what companies do with that information, whether they filter out or not, but I am assuming if there is a question like that, they do filter out. Is the natural assumption is there, because to apply for visa and support someone, an immigrant, takes more money, right? Because when you apply for H1B visa, I don't know the exact cost per year, but it's something like $4,000 to $5,000 to apply for the H1B, because lawyer fees and all of that. So obviously, when somebody offers you any sort of position, they have to incorporate the fact that there's an additional cost component with an immigrant. So that might or might not allow an employer to choose an immigrant, but that is something we have to work with.
Okay, so I assume that on the first question, are you legally authorized in the US? You answer yes. And will you in the future require a visa? You also reply
Answer yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you feel that it might impact your job search, like conversion rate, like a response rate?
Absolutely, it has to. That's just the nature of how this job process or the application process works. Because nowadays, for an average job, you get 100, 200 applications. So when you're filtering out based on qualifications, degrees, and all of that, filtering out based on visas is another way to filter candidates. So it's the attrition rate, as you said. Of course, the turnover rate is more. I have to apply for more jobs than somebody who's a US citizen would.
Okay. And yeah, let's talk about your job search, because you recently found a job, and we are talking in 2023, where recession is, a lot of layoffs in tech market, and hiring freezes in many companies. So, but you found your job, yeah. And as far as I know, you found your job pretty quickly. Even like regarding that, you have this visa status, and you might be filtered out from the other strong candidates, you still were able to find a job. Like, could you please share your job search experience? How many applications did you submit? How many interviews did you have?
So, I'll talk about my recent job search, which is beginning of this year. So I left my previous company in January and joined my new company at the end of January. So basically, that's the application process. I'm going to say actively took 2 weeks and passively took a month. I'd say the number of applications I applied to, or positions I applied to, maybe 40 to 50 this time, because obviously, I as you grow in your field, you have specific requirements, and you also know as an immigrant which companies or which sort of roles may support an immigration component. These are all things you learn as you be in a field. So I'd say maybe I'd say 50 applications, and I would say maybe 4 to 5 interview processes in different companies, and I had 2 offers at the end of it, and I chose this one. So so that's how that worked. Obviously, interview processes I transitioned from a new regional sales manager to a business development executive. So the interview process were pretty smooth, maybe 3 sets of interviews in both companies over maybe a week. And then finally, I had to talk to the CEOs of each company because those were the people I would be reporting to. And that's how I got the job. Now, although you can say the job application process or the job search didn't take that long, it needed all the experience I had gathered from all these years to make sure, I apply to the right company. Obviously, immigration is always a component. I can never get away from it as someone from outside of this country. So you understand how to move. Obviously, when you're in a system, you understand how to move around it because that's just the only way to be.
Okay. That's really super impressive. It's super. You found a job very quickly for 2 weeks. You spent 2 weeks actively searching, applying, and apply only for 40, 50 jobs. And and I've heard like the story that people apply for thousands, like, I don't know, like send like
that's
thousands of resumes and have no offers. And you applied for 40, 50 and got 2 job offers, even without with necessity of future visa and visa in the future. So like what do you believe was the key to your success in receiving a job, 2 job offers actually relatively quickly?
Yeah, so that's something that's something I can tell every immigrant, right? The immigration status, maybe somebody else controls it. Whether getting a visa or not getting that might be out of your control. But what is in your control is your skill set and what you develop. And that is something I've worked on consciously for at least the last 3 years in terms of what I might do well in an industry or, tailoring myself. I've always been like a good communicator, but I developed like exactly how certain things work, how business works, at least in the genomics industry. So I've learned all of those. And on top of that, I don't relinquish my love of science. I've always stayed in touch with science, which is essential. So when you put those 2 things together, people, especially people in the industry, will always want you. There are enough jobs, high-level jobs, that need that kind of expertise. And that's something that every immigrant should understand.
Okay, so like your key success, like of this success was like your skills, definitely, that you developed over the years you lived in the US, your domain expertise, your knowledge, specific knowledge, right? And you also mentioned that you know where to apply. So you were aware of the company who provide visa, right, for immigrants.
Yeah,
right?
It's not aware of the exact company. It's more like understanding which kind of roles are fit for like immigration, right? It has to be critical roles, like, because where people are more interested in the candidate and what he's able to do, where the $5,000 that is needed to apply for a visa doesn't look like much because the candidate is that important. Because a long job search process for a company, an applicant search process or a candidate search process may cost $20,000 to $40,000. So at high level roles, even with an immigration component, the $5,000 doesn't seem as much. So that's why improving your skills and going up the ladder is much more important for us immigrants.
Interesting. And how to define which roles are possible, like critical roles applicable for immigrants? What immigrants should select for their roles?
Yeah, so that is a very good, difficult question. It's a broad question, but I would say anything that requires sort of, at least from my end, you managing a lot of people in terms of the sales process or negotiating high-level business strategy deals with different companies. So these are probably sort of roles you need in at least biotech that might support an immigration process.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Good. My last question will be about the recommendations for other folks who are watching our video right now. So, what would you recommend for individuals who are looking for a job in the US or maybe struggling with the same visa situations?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that's in your control is constantly improve yourself in terms of skill. In terms of skill and know-how is the first thing. You know, you keep improving yourself. Look at peers in your field. The second thing is always look at how to be nimble. An example of this is, let's say, you know, another candidate might not be open to moving within the US, but if you're open to moving, that obviously puts you up a level in terms of a job search process. So you have to know what kind of, you know, all these sort of nimble techniques to be dynamic. Be open to moving, be open to taking up new roles that you might not think is the best fit for you. Find what might be good in that, and be open to working in startups because the environment is dynamic. A traditional company might sound alluring just for the package and the money and the security, but in terms of your personal growth, is that what you want? So all of these things you have to understand, and when you're sort of in at least at ease with all of this, your job search process and your career in general and life in general becomes easier.
Yeah, that's a very good advice, and I really like the last one about startups because when we talk about visa status or job in the US, people really like often consider only that big companies, big corporation, and but startups, it's better to start. It's easier to start. Sometimes it's dynamic. It might be better way to develop your skills because it's like pretty wide range of skills you need to work at startups, and it's easier to get a job sometimes in startups than in these big corporation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's easier, but you know, it requires a
Depends.
certain,
Yeah, just
it,
different skill set. Yeah, you
different
need.
skill sets. It
Yeah,
requires a different set of skills as well as a little more confidence because and ability and confidence in your own ability because everything is not streamlined. So you know, depending on which country you come from, I'm assuming at least the processes or the corporate processes aren't as streamlined as here in the US. So you might want everything to be streamlined, but in a startup, it's more dynamic. So you should be open to that.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. All right. So thank you, Ram, again for sharing your insightful perspectives and experiences. I appreciate your openness and wish you the best of luck with your visa journey. And I eagerly await the opportunity to discuss your O1 visa journey in this channel next year.
Oh, thank you so much. Absolutely. You can
Yeah.
count me in for that.
Yeah, and for my viewers, if you found this video informative and enjoyable, I kindly ask you to show your support by hitting the like button and sharing this video with friends who might find it valuable. If you have any further questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more valuable content. If you need assistance with refining your resume, optimizing your LinkedIn profile, or preparing for the job interviews, you can schedule a session with me at annanaumova.com. And once again, thank you, Ram, for your time, and thank you for watching this video and for tuning in. And I look forward to having you join us again next week. Oh, hello. Hello. Yeah, my cat was just at the end. Good how to say, like, wrap it up window. Bye bye.